text-based, and likenesses if using a webcam may be included in the recording. So good afternoon, guys. Thanks for coming to this daily digital micro webinar. So all we're going to be looking at today is what's called back to basics. It's foundational computer skills that everyone can use. So not everyone is immediately computer literate, and that's nothing to be ashamed of, because everybody has to start somewhere. So today we're just going to have a look at some very straightforward foundational IT skills, just some general stuff you can do with the mouse and some general things you can do with the keyboard, just to get to grips with your computer system, basically. So we're going to start by having a look at some of the items you can do with the mouse itself. Right, so let's see. So with the mouse, the standard setup for your mouse, you've got your left button and your right button, and usually a scroll wheel. There are other options. Some mice are more complex. Sometimes you see mice will have like back or forward buttons to scroll through on the side. Some mice will have 3 buttons. Some mice, like on Apple products, may have only 1 button. But you can still treat it the same as a 2-button mouse, just by clicking either side of that 1 button. So you do get a lot of variance with the mouse options there. So stuff you can do with the mouse. Let me get that off the screen for a second. With the mouse itself, within different browsers and within applications, a lot of things will work the same. So as I'm sure you're aware, you can just click once to select items. So for example, here, if I wanted to open up an application on my machine, I could click once and I would highlight the icon. But to actually open an icon, you'd have to double click. So click on the left button twice. So I could double click this one twice, and that would then open a new window for me from that particular application or icon. So double clicking is quite important to know that. What you can also do, using the right button, on the right mouse button, you can actually get some additional options. So say, for example, I wanted to open up, say, this folder again. I could click it to select it, and then right click it with the mouse. So just using the right button, and that'll open up some menu options. So I could, for example, decide what program I wanted to open it with, or I could send like a shortcut to somebody via email or to the desktop, or I could copy that icon and make a shortcut of it, or I could even delete it, rename it, or view additional properties. So right-clicking on items will give you some nice new context-sensitive menu options as well. Another thing that's quite handy you can do with the mouse is when you're on websites or even on applications. For example, here, if I go to the Cardiff Met homepage, I'm currently in Chrome as my browser. So if I scroll down here and look at some links, for example, so say, for example, these news links on the side here, as I hover my mouse over them, if I leave the mouse there, it'll vary from browser to browser, but some browsers will have a little box will appear where your cursor is that will show you where where that link is going to go. And in this instance, you can see at the very bottom of the browser window, so right down here, you can see as I hover the mouse over each link, it'll change and tell me exactly where those links are going to go. So this is an excellent way of making sure that you're still going to the correct websites and that you're not being taken to somewhere scammy. It's a good way of checking that you are going to the right place. One thing I'm sure you can do is with the mouse as well, you can click onto any text, or at least most text, and you can click and hold the mouse and drag to highlight. And once you've got text highlighted, then you can, for example, right click and you could copy that text, or you could even search for that text as well. Another handy thing you can do with the mouse is using the scroll wheel. So for example, the scroll wheel, that allows you to, if you move that mouse, you can scroll up and down just by rotating the wheel. But one thing that a lot of people don't know is that you can actually click that scroll wheel as well. So if I wanted to click one of these links, so say for example, I click this link here, you notice that opens in the same window. So it opens in the same tab. So if I wanted to go back to that home page, I need to click the back button. But if I clicked on a link with the scroll button instead of just using a left button, if I click, for example, this one here, if I use the scroll button and click that, you'll see now the home page remains open in this tab, but a new tab is open. So you can actually read things by using the scroll wheel, and it'll open up in new tabs. So it's a great way of, if you don't want to go back, or if you only want to check out something briefly, that's a handy little method to open up new windows and new tabs. You can also use the scroll wheel along with in conjunction with the keyboard. So, for example, if you hold down the control button and then use the scroll wheel, you can scroll up and down to zoom in and zoom out. So that's a really good way. If your eyesight's quite bad like mine and you want to zoom in to see something, then you can, of course, use the scroll wheel to do that. When you do that, most browsers will tell you that you're zoomed in, and then you can reset as well if you need to. So as you can see, there's quite a lot you can do with the mouse there. And even if you're trying to select things, as I say, you can click and select and drag it, but you can double click on a word and that'll select the entire word. But if you triple click, so if you click 3 times, you'll select the entire paragraph. So that's a really quick way of making large selections as well. So one last thing I want to talk about now is what you can do with the typing. So let's have a look. So this is roughly what your keyboard will probably look like. This is just an average keyboard. There will be variations, of course. Some keyboards don't have the extra keys along here. So some keyboards omit the keypad here. Windows and Macs will have different keys along the bottom, but for the most part, your keyboard will be generally standardized. So what's quite nice with the keyboard, some of the things you can do, you'll notice that the layout says here, it's got this QWERTY, so QWERTY. This layout was originally set up in the 1870s thereabouts, and at the time, the thinking is that these keys were set this way to slow typists down so that typewriters wouldn't get jammed up. So obviously that's no longer a concern, but because it became such a standardized keyboard layout, it's been in effect now for a very, very long time indeed. And using the keyboard keys, you can use shortcuts to make your word processing and computing life a bit more simple. So for example, let me get this off the screen here for a second. Oops. There we go. So for here, for example, if I have got something selected, instead of right-clicking and copying it, you could just press the Control button and the letter C, and that will copy it. And then you can open up like a new word processing document. So I've got a Word document here that's just completely blank. And instead of pasting it in there by using the File menu or the Home menu, or right-clicking even, so you can paste from the right-click menu, you can just press Control and V, and that will paste that in there for you as well. If you are typing and you make some sort of mistake, one really good option you can do, which works in a lot of web browsers and a lot of programs, is the undo button. So you can press Control and Z to undo, and that'll undo your last action. And you can even undo your undo. So if you press Control and Y, in most browsers and in most applications, that will also redo whatever you've just undone. So Control and Z to undo and Control and Y to redo can be quite useful. They don't work in absolutely every system, but they do work in a lot of them, so that can be quite useful. You can also press Control and A, and that'll highlight all of the text on a page. And sometimes, instead of copying, instead of pressing Control and C, you can press Control and X, and that will cut all of the text that you've just typed, but it holds it on the clipboard. So now I could go to another page or whatever I want to go, and I could press Control and V to paste, and that'll paste in everything that I've just cut. So there's a couple of nice ways you can work things out and copy and paste items there. You can also use the home buttons and the end buttons, which are these ones here. So if I show you, the home and the end buttons will help skip your cursor around the screen. You discard that. So for example, here, I could put my cursor at the start of this sentence. And if I press the end button here, it actually jumps that cursor to the end of the line. You can see it's now at this end here. And you can also hold down the Shift button to adjust your text as well. I see a lot of people typing using the caps lock key. The caps lock key will of course make sure that you can type in all capital letters. And I see a lot of people will start words by pressing caps lock, then type the letter, then turn caps lock off, and then start typing. And that obviously is a little bit of a labored way of doing things. So what you can do instead is, instead of caps locking it, you could just hold down the Shift key, press the button to get a capital letter, then release the Shift key, and then type the rest of the word in lowercase. So the Shift key is a really good way to capitalize or non-capitalize letters instead of using the caps lock key. And I think that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it for there. So again, like I say, this is only just a little brief introduction to some very kind of like basic word processing skills, but hopefully it's something that you might find a little useful. I'm going to open up the mics for you guys now as well, so you'll be able to open your mics and ask any questions. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. And